Hey, payday, you want payday? I know that. Canelo Alvarez was injured. There was something wrong with Canelo's hand. In his previous recent fights, Canelo says he was not happy about it, but presumably he's okay for the Jermell Charlo fight. What up, Fight World? It's your boy Ego, and I am back with some more boxing. Payday, you want? Make sure you guys subscribe to the channel. I am the best in the business. Now, Canelo Alvarez did a recent media scrum, and in that media scrum, Canelo Alvarez says he wasn't really happy, and the reporters were trying to get more from him. Why were you unhappy? What happened? And he was like, I'm happy. Like, basically, it sounded like he was saying, I'm happy that I won, but things didn't go according to plan, and it wasn't 100%. I was not 100% in recent fights. So Canelo kind of has this built-in excuse. And it's funny in boxing when it comes to these things, because when certain fighters like Wilder, he expressed himself in the Tyson Fury fight. He had some things that he said in interviews, and people said, oh, Wilder's just making excuses. He just can't accept his loss. Yet Canelo Alvarez, when he fought Bivol, he said that he feels immediately after the fight, he said that he believes that he beat Bivol. And he said Bivol won maybe like 3 or 4 rounds, but he thought he won the fight. And anybody who watched that fight, it really wasn't even a hard fight to score for real. Canelo definitely didn't look great in that particular fight, and he definitely didn't win that particular fight. I think Canelo Alvarez, he looked pretty bad if we're being honest, and got schooled up by Bivol. So I don't know if it was emotions, which is why he said that, but there's no way he beat Bivol. But then now he's coming out and saying that there was something wrong with his hand, and that's why he acquitted himself the way he did in his last 3 fights. Because as Canelo has aged, now people are providing the criticism and saying he lost a step. He's no longer the same fighter, saying that Canelo maybe doesn't have it anymore. And I think this all took place in the Bivol fight. From the Bivol fight, he went on to not rematch Bivol and fight Gennady Golovkin. Hey, no, guys, hey, Max, guys, it's big drama. It's punches and nothing, right? And he fought Triple G in a fight that nobody really requested at that time. Sure, there was a point in time where people wanted to see perhaps a trilogy fight, but Canelo waited until Triple G was like 42 years old, and Triple G himself had faded. If you watch fights with the fighter he fought in Japan, Ryder Murata, he was getting touched up and he was looking tired and looking winded, even though he came back and knocked out Murata. If you look at his fight with Steve Rolls was an unheralded, unknown guy that no one expected could beat Triple G. And even he, and keep in mind, he didn't have big fight experience. He didn't have a lot of rounds in the bank. Like, I don't think he'd ever done a 12-rounder before, and he maybe had like 1 10-rounder. So he wasn't this experienced guy, and he was even tagging Triple G in that particular fight. So same thing, Triple G knocked him out, but in my opinion, it wasn't a great showing by Triple G up until that point. You know, the knockout came. It's just like Billy Joe Saunders. Billy Joe Saunders fought on the KSI Logan Paul undercard against that Esteban guy. And yeah, he got a knockout, but he wasn't looking good up until that moment. And you've seen fights like that. And then, of course, Triple G, when he fought against Derevchenko, I definitely thought he lost that fight. So he got hurt in that fight as well. So I said that to say this: when Triple G fought Canelo Alvarez for a third time, people didn't want to see it. If Canelo would have fought him back in the HBO days a third time and not fought Rocky Fielding and all these other guys when he first entered his DAZN contract, or when he and Triple G were first on the same side of the street with DAZN, then maybe that fight would have been passable and people would have enjoyed it. But he waited. So now Canelo, he's kind of bringing up an excuse, saying he had hand issues, and that's why he didn't look sensational versus John Ryder. He had hand issues that he didn't look sensational versus Triple G or Bivol. So the Jermell Charlo, he's coming off a hand injury as well, but this could be a great fight and a dangerous fight, because if he re-injures himself or whatever he's saying, because sometimes fighters say stuff because they're defiant and they don't want to admit why they look bad. Like they have to find a way to, hey, it was a premature stoppage. Like Chris Eubank Jr., he's about to fight this weekend against Liam Smith, and then he came up with some weird excuse and said it was a premature stoppage, and he had no legs and he was out on his feet. So fighters don't want to admit defeat. We know that. So I can see why Canelo was unhappy with his performances. I think more than he's leading on, it's because he has a lot of wear and tear. He turned pro at age 15. So he's been a pro for over 15 years because he's over 30 years old now. So I think more so than whatever he's saying is wrong with his hand, I think just the overall wear and tear of having a long career, that's why he's only like 33, 34 years old, but he's an old 33, 34 because he wasn't preserved. He was in Mexico fighting club fights, and that's why he has like 60 fights. If you look at anyone else in or around boxing, in or around his age group at 33, 34, none of them really have 60 fights. The only time you really see that is genuinely kind of fighters from Mexico or other countries like Zordo Ramirez, where they have a gang of fights and things of that sort, because it's just a different path as opposed to the amateurs. If you don't have an amateur career, you just learn on the job, which is what Zordo and Canelo did. So I think Canelo has a lot of wear and tear on him. That's me personally. But Jermell Charlo, he's faced with his own disadvantages because he has to move up a lot of weight for this fight. So should be a good fight. We'll see how it plays out. Canelo Alvarez says he was injured. Drop your thoughts in the comment section. Best in the business, and I am out.